Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Madison Square Garden Entertainment, welcome to the legendary Chicago Theater, presented by Chase. For information on all upcoming events, please visit our website at www.thechicagotheater.com. Before the performance begins, we would like to remind our guests that food and beverages are allowed inside the auditorium during this performance. Cell phones and electronic devices should be silenced at this time. The performing artists strictly prohibit the use of photographic, video, or audio recording devices of any kind. Please note the location of the nearest exit in the unlikely event of an emergency. Thanks for coming to the Chicago Theater and enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Madison Square Garden Entertainment, welcome to the legendary Chicago Theater, presented by Chase. For information on all upcoming events, please visit our website at www.thechicagotheater.com. Before the performance begins, we would like to remind our guests that food and beverages are allowed inside the auditorium during this performance. Cell phones and electronic devices should be silenced at this time. The performing artists strictly prohibit the use of photographic, video, or audio recording devices of any kind. Please note the location of the nearest exit in the unlikely event of an emergency. Thanks for coming to the Chicago Theater and enjoy the show.
There's a type of crazy mushroom that runs underneath the earth a mile, connected by a spider web of endless root systems. It's one of the largest living organisms in the world, yeah. It may hold the answer to our century. We're so dependent on oil, but we can't break free. The sun and the soil, you know they're my energy. Sun and the soil are my energy. Chicago, the time is now, like it always has been. Don't you get your feet stuck in the mud, you got to keep on moving. Yeah, no, no. I keep my feet upon the pedals of my life. It's a battle to be free, and it's a wonder how we wonder at all wonderment don't cease. I'm wondering just what will become of humanity. Oh, there's too many gadgets, not enough food, grown from the land and sown by hand. And I just wanna love you from the bottom of my heart. But baby, have I ever been there? So long ago I started falling, yeah. The time is now, yeah. Like it always has been. Don't you get your feet stuck in the mud, you got to keep on moving. Moving on. The time is now, like it always has been. Don't you get your feet stuck in the mud, you got to keep on moving on.
All right, Chicago. Please put your hands together for the warrior for reason, Matt Dillahunty.
Hey. Hey. Every time he says that, I'm looking for my wrestling opponent. How's everybody doing in Chicago? Yeah. I wanted to thank some folks who took pictures of the marquee and sent it to us a couple days early. I don't know if you know this, but evidently atheists and homosexuals have magical powers to control the weather. The first time we saw this was when Katrina tried to go after New Orleans because God was mad at the gays. And the French Quarter survived because of the protective gay magical shield that directed the hurricane over to the parts where all the God-fearing people lived. The second time, where there was a Texas Free Thought Convention, which was Christopher Hitchens' final convention. You're cheering that it was somebody's final? Oh no, you're cheering for Chris. That summer, Texas had been in a drought, and they had had prayer vigils. And even Governor Perry had come out and said, we're going to have a prayer breakfast, and we're going to get together, we're going to pray for rain. And they prayed for rain, and nothing happened. And they prayed for rain, and nothing happened. And then the atheists got together and had a convention, and it fucking poured. And tonight's the third example of that, because everybody's worried because of all the snow apocalypse that's going to take over. Are you going to make it? Is Sam going to make it? Is Lawrence going to make it? Oh my God, we're not going to have an event. Did I say, oh my God? Shit. We are all here, and we're looking forward to a great evening. Let me tell you a little bit about what's going on. In a minute, I'll bring them out. We'll talk for, an hour or so, and then there's microphones set up for us to take questions. And I'll just preempt this so that when we're close to getting ready to take questions, I'll just make some kind of announcement, and then people can line up. As a reminder, and I may say this again, because, I repeat myself, questions end in a question mark. They don't begin with your life story or your current dissertation. There are going to be plenty of people in line, and anybody who's seen me on the Atheist Experience who thinks I can't hang up on you in person is sorely mistaken. I tell you what, it's been an honor. We've done this event in New York. We'll be doing this event in Phoenix in upcoming months. You can find out more about what's going on at pangburnphilosophy.com. Thanks to them for putting on this event. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Dr. Lawrence Krauss and Dr. Sam Harris. Thank you. Here we go. Thanks. Well, you guys are done. We were counting on like 10 minutes of applause at the beginning, so we didn't have to think very much.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for coming out.
Yeah.
It's really
Yes, thank you.
It's amazing.
So, we were talking before about what types of topics we might hit on, and we're trying to do things different in each of the towns. There's a lot of people who are here because they feel that one or more of us may have had some impact on their lives and influence them. And I thought it'd be a good place to start for each of you to talk about who opened your minds, who excited you about knowledge and understanding and flipped light switches for you.
I told you not to mention the lobotomy. I think for me, one of the reasons I write books now, I think, is I read books by scientists and George Gamow. For me, probably Richard Feynman more than many, I think, because he was the first. When I was at some summer science program, and the teacher could tell I was bored, and he gave me the book by Feynman called The Character of Physical Law. And it was the first time I realized that it wasn't all done. It wasn't all done by dead white men a long time ago, and that there were still big problems that we didn't understand. So that was the first time I realized, hey, there's something left to do, and I got really turned on. I think and of course Feynman was really important in encouraging skepticism, in explaining that science, a good scientist tries to prove a theory right, but tries equally hard to prove it wrong, and that's probably the first time I heard that.
Well, I guess taking that very literally, opening my mind, I have to say there's a couple of meditation teachers who literally did that. I guess it would be Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche, who's this great, very elfin Tibetan Lama who I met back in the early 90s, I would think, and he was just a guy who had been in retreat for about 15 or 20 years, and just quite a kind of a magical and brilliant teacher of just actually the topic you and I were fighting about last time, the illusion of the self, and
he led you astray early on.
Yes, so he induced this hallucination that you're worried about. And it's persisted for many years.
Yeah, and I think actually that's probably a good segue, as there were a number of topics that we discussed in New York, but this one I know I didn't get to an understanding of what you mean when you're talking about, from a standpoint of meditation, et cetera, getting into the introspection and losing a sense of self. So, I don't know. Would you expound on that so that we can either come to an understanding of it or beat it to death after?
Yeah. Well, we should frame what I'm about to say with the understanding that basically every word out of my mouth for the next minute is going to be setting off Lawrence's bullshit detectors. And that's a problem. I will argue that's a problem, and it's not my problem.
Or mine.
So the setup to this is that, and this is not something that I always knew, this is something that was, thank you, your body language is, it's amazing to fawn and communicate derision in the same gesture. I mean, empiricism is obviously the bedrock of the scientific method and a naturalistic attitude of just observing the world and being led to theorize about it in a way that's constrained by evidence and consistent observation. And introspection in the West has been fairly unfruitful because most people, even going back 150 years or so, when people like William James and Wundt and other people in the dawn of psychology tried to get introspection off the ground, they looked inside and noticed that you really can't discover much about the mind by just looking inside. You can't even discover that you have a brain. Needless to say, you can't discover the dependence of the mind on the brain. And there are many things in science and in a scientific understanding of the mind that you can't get through introspection. But there are some things you can. And so to the question about the self, I mean, the self that is illusory from a Buddhist or meditational point of view is the sense that there's a subject in the head riding around in the center of experience. So there's clearly experience, there's clearly consciousness and its contents. There's a world that we see and hear and touch. There's the body in the world that we see and feel with sensations beyond touch. We have proprioception, we have a sense of our internal interoceptive states. You feel your gut, you feel emotional reactions to things, which are kind of an extrapolation of interoception. So all of this is not illusory, but most of us, certainly most of the time, feel that we are a self, a subject, located somewhere in the head that is an unchanging center to all of this cascade of experience. So there's seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, and other senses, and all of that's happening to a witness, a center in consciousness that is thinking the thoughts and hearing the sounds. And meditation is just a technique to look more closely at that sense of that there's a center. And you can actually find it to be absent. And it makes, and this should interest you, from...
I was waiting for that part.
It's amazing how it's amazing how sassy that can sound, but it should. This is far more convergent with what we know about the brain. I mean, there's no neurological sense to be made of an unchanging center to consciousness, and it's analogous to something like the optic blind spot. So the optic blind spot is something that most of us learned about in school. Obviously for thousands of years, people didn't know it existed. It's something you can observe about your phenomenology with some effort. I mean, you need a piece of paper and you draw two dots on it and you move it to the right spot, and one dot disappears, and it reveals something about the anatomy of the eye that's true, that we can find the corresponding third-person physical correlate of it. And
for fun, when I'm sitting up here, I'm constantly making your head disappear just by boom, Sam's head's gone.
Yeah. So well, that's true.
Okay.
That is true. That is true. I mean, it's counterintuitive, but if you look out at a crowd of heads, and close one eye, there's almost certainly somebody missing a head, and it would be hard to notice. But the sense that this is something, the fact that it takes some work to observe this, and this is something that actually makes more neurological sense, should give your feeling of not having observed it, having put very little effort into observing it. Well, you told last time you said it was a minute and a half, or.
Oh, when you make me do that stuff supposed to calm me down, I just can't do this for more than a minute or so.
So that's one reason why at least you should be open-minded as to whether or not there's a there there.
I'm open-minded to the fact that you may experience many things under drugs or under meditation. and those are experiences. And I think, Oliver Sacks said hallucinations are real to those people who are hallucinating. And they are. And so I think everything you experience can feel real to you. It's just that.
But what would you? Let me ask you a few questions. I mean, you're going to be talking, but I just want to ask you. I just want to ask you a few questions.
I was about to talk.
I know, but
actually,
I want to get you right on track.
Okay.
Because,
thank you.
If paying more attention reliably leads to this experience, and paying less attention reliably leads to the experience you're having, what would that suggest to you?
It suggests you can do many things with your mind. When I'm working hard on a physics problem, I may lose complete consciousness of myself.
Right.
That's fine. It's good that my brain can concentrate, but I don't have any idea that I don't exist when I'm working on it. I realize that I'm just excluding all those things that are getting in the way of what I want to think about.
You exist. The person exists.
But the self. I mean, I was just thinking about this backstage. That to me, I was going to use the word miracle, but I won't. I'm a physicist, but if I had to think of one of the most amazing things in the universe, it's the fact that we have a self. The fact that you can take a complex computing system at some level, and it can become self-aware, is to me one of the most remarkable things about the universe. And so that existence is something we should celebrate and not try and get rid of.
Then I think you're getting misled by the word self. We're using it differently because there's absolutely nothing miraculous or wonderful about this type of self-awareness that I'm saying is transitory. I mean, it's like self-consciousness in the sense of, oh, you've got something on your face, and you feel like, oh, what me?
Thank you.
That recoil from experience, that sense of suddenly being behind your face, that's not the majesty of subjectivity that you're talking about.
No, I'm saying that I'm self-aware. And maybe there are other animals who are too, but that you can reach a level of computational complexity so that we can understand that we exist separate from the universe around us, and that we have a self. And then I said to you last time, I know you have a self. I cut your head off, and your self ain't there anymore.
Okay, but again,
I mean, it's not a little man.
You're using the word differently because it's not. Yes, if you cut my head off, I would be dead, right? So I'm not disputing that.
Yeah. Okay.
So, let me just ask you one more question because maybe we're hitting a brick wall.
There is a separation between. You can try. Look, I think you can do amazing things when you focus on it. The mind is an amazing entity which we still don't understand. In fact, we don't understand self. We don't understand consciousness. These are words, but we don't really, in my opinion, understand them yet. But so the fact that you can reach a state where you have this feeling is neat.
It's not a state.
It's the same state that people have when they think God's talking to them.
No. So, just one a logical way to come at this. So there's consciousness and its contents. So everything you can experience is part of the contents of consciousness. Your feelings and your thoughts and your sensations. Now, this experience of having a self has to be an experience. Otherwise, you wouldn't say that it exists, right? And my losing a sense of self also has an experiential quality. I mean, there's something that has been lost, right?
Yeah, but we have to be very skeptical of ourselves.
Yeah, I think we should be.
And we have to be very skeptical of our experiences, and especially when it comes to internal experiences of assessing yourself, which we all do every day. We all lie about ourselves every day. We have to be skeptical about that. And if we experience something that gives us this profound revelation, profound revelations about ourselves are usually wrong.
I'm just saying the revelations you've got the revelation on the wrong side here, or the false revelation.
There's a part of this that I don't get.
Well, there's one point I just didn't make here.
Let him talk.
No, I want to give you the logical piece here.
Okay.
So if there is an experiential component to the sense of self, right? If this is an object for consciousness, right? Consciousness, subjectively speaking, I'm not talking about something spooky about consciousness being the ground floor of reality, but consciousness subjectively is prior to this feeling of self. I mean, this feeling is appearing among the objects of consciousness. It's a feeling in your face. It's a feeling in your chest. So consciousness being prior to it, don't you think it might be possible to take the perspective of consciousness and see that feeling of self as yet just another object in consciousness? Another sight, another sound, another sensation, another thought?
Yeah, sure. Okay, big deal.
Okay. And what do you think that feels like?
What?
What do you think it would feel like to actually be able to do that?
I do think it would feel somewhat similar to the sense. I mean, I don't meditate, but if I am, the rare times I get to really work, if I'm writing or doing physics or something,
you lose yourself in your work.
I lose myself in my work,
Yeah.
and so I think I can. People always tell me you don't know what that's like because you haven't experienced. But I think that is as close as it can get, and it's a very satisfying feeling.
Well, there's one difference. That is a clue. That should be a clue to you, because that is a clue that this sense of self is transitory. It's perturbable. You can lose it. You can pay so much attention to your work or to anything else that you no longer feel that way. You can have a flow experience, whether it's in athletics or whatever, and then retrospectively you come back and assess, oh, that happened to me.
I guess so the sense of self may be dependent upon your state of consciousness. I would agree, but there is a self. I'm me and you're you, and sometimes I would like to be you, but I'm happy to be me.
Okay.
Two different usages of the word
Yes,
self,
yeah.
because my point of confusion is, if you have the experience of losing this sense of self, then what is the experience here? And I think you're just saying
Just consciousness and its contents. Everything is the same.
But
There's sights and sounds and thoughts.
But what
and
makes it
sensations.
better? I mean, I guess
that's the second question.
The point is, okay, it's a neat thing. I mean, and I think you said somewhere you can get it from taking drugs too, right?
Well, if you're lucky, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Depends on your dealer.
And I mean, there's a lot. So fine, but it's just another feeling. There's nothing special about it.
Well, no. Again, you're just not in a position to say that. So.
Oh, we see now that.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think it's legitimate to ask, okay, there's two separate issues. Can you lose the sense of self? And if you, in fact, can, why?
What's that good for?
What benefit is it?
Right. Well, so there's two benefits. One is that it's actually just the intellectual benefit of it being more true. It's like you're actually noticing your experience more closely than you otherwise. You're not taken in by an illusion, and that has its own rewards. But it actually...
I think that's an assumption on your part, but okay.
Well, no, but the thing is, you can do this so much. This is not a peak experience that you have once a year. You can do it, I can do it now. So I can talk about it, and I can notice what it's like to lose it and regain it, right? I mean, you can traverse that boundary 1,000 times in a day.
You don't understand the incredible exhilaration you get by being totally absorbed by yourself,
Right,
which I can explain to you.
I know.
At some point.
Well, but the real benefit is that all of our psychological suffering is the result of being lost in thought and not knowing it. I mean, we're thinking every moment of our lives about all of the things we want or regret or wish had turned out differently. We have an argument with someone, and then we replay it in our heads for the next hour and a half. You get suddenly angry, and then rather than just watch the half-life of that emotion dissipate over the course of literally seconds, you rekindle it moment after moment after moment for an hour or for a day or for longer, based on thinking about all the reasons why you should be angry, and you're not even aware that you're thinking. So you're talking to yourself every moment of your life, and this automaticity is uninspected, and you don't even have the tools by which to inspect it. I mean, most people don't even know there's an option to inspect it, but even if they tried, they would just be lost in thought again in the next second. And the character of being lost in thought is to feel like a self and to be hostage to whatever emotional payload that thought is bearing with it. So all of the depression and the anxiety and the sadness and all of it.
And I've heard this before.
So you can break that spell.
But talking to yourself is another
It's a tool. It
huge
can be a
leap.
tool.
I mean,
it can be a tool, yes.
My good friend and your good friend Noam Chomsky would say,
Yes.
very
close.
And I know Noam has said to me, but I think it's true. He argues that language actually was not developed to communicate outside, but to communicate internally to yourself. And I think that's an interesting thought.
That might be one of the things he's wrong about.
It could be. It could be.
Well, I've heard you talk before about, all of our suffering is tied up in this self, and so gaining the ability to lose a sense of self would minimize or reduce or eliminate this sort of suffering. But for me, if that's true for suffering, first of all, I think we can learn from our suffering, and so I think there's value there.
Well,
But
you will
also-
suffer. I mean, it's suffering is
I
guaranteed.
think there's
so
things to learn from this constant
there will be
state of-
enough. There will be enough in any case.
Okay, but I still think there's things to learn
I'm
from
going to
the
learn from this
constant-
conversation. There's a subtle no. Anyway, okay.
I think,
Some
I think
people in
there's
the
something
audience
to learn
got
from
my
the constant
joke. Okay.
self-reflection, but wouldn't the self also be responsible for joy?
Yeah, exactly.
So if I'm practicing,
Some joys, yeah.
what joy wouldn't be tied to?
But
a
what's
sense of
wrong
self?
with reliving good moments?
Well, the thing,
I guess,
okay,
is
so just to come back to his flow experience of getting so immersed in his work, most of the joys that people really crave tend to be these moments in life where you're not waiting for the next thing to happen. You are totally immersed in the good thing that is happening right now. So whether that's sex or sports or entertainment where that's so good that you forgot you're even watching a movie, you're completely one-pointed on something. Now, it is actually a feature of the human mind where, and this is a surprising feature, it doesn't actually matter what that something is. The concentration is intrinsically pleasurable. And that's you can think that might have, an odd moral valence, and I would grant you it might.
I think it works as a.
But you can.
Wouldn't it mean suffering is also a point of joy?
It actually can be. I mean, because you can be so one. I mean, this is something that happens on meditation retreats. You can sit with a lot of physical pain, and the difference between agony and ecstasy can sort of become indistinct. I mean, it's just intense experience.
But not just being in the moment. I mean, I'm getting pleasure out of anticipating what's going to happen next, what's going to come out of your mouth next.
That's another kind of pleasure.
I would argue it's not thinking about the moment. It's sort of saying, gee, what's going to happen next? But
this is not going to be the best experience you're going to have all year, presumably.
Sam, I think you're selling yourself short.
Yeah,
I really do.
Another backhanded compliment. But the point being that you can actually, when you pay attention to those moments where you have really forgotten yourself in a good way. I mean, you can lose yourself in anger, say. I mean, you can lose yourself in a morally, certainly unproductive and kind of classically unpleasant emotion. But it's not. The most pleasurable moments in life are not the moments where you're reiterating to yourself why you should be happy. You're simply just happy. I mean, so like you're simply, well, there are those moments.
I think there's something to some of what you're saying. And no, really, but what I do think you're influenced by your interest in Buddhism there. I think the value judgment, the only thing that I disagree with you about is not, I mean, I think I'd agree that you can have these experiences that are quite interesting. It's the value judgment that they're somehow more worthy than the other experience
it's an observation about the mechanics of my own suffering, right? So I'll just make it as local as possible.
Sure, good.
Now, this is an experience that is attested to by an uncountable number of people who have run the same experiment on themselves. So it's analogous to somebody getting in shape at the gym, right? Like, how did you get those muscles? Well, I picked up these heavy things, thousands of times, and I ate, this diet, and this is what happened, right? Now, it just so happens, in that case, you can see the person's body, and so you have this visual correlate to what they did. But there's an inner gym. I mean, you can actually kind of change your emotional tone. You can change your capacity to fly off the handle. You can become the guy who used to get angry and stay angry for half a day and spend all that time saying and doing the things that angry people say and do to disrupt their lives and the lives of others. And you can cease to be that person, and you can know how you affected that change. And so, and it's a very common experience to develop enough, what's called now mindfulness, which is a buzzword, but enough of a capacity to observe the mechanics of your own disorder, to notice that you're getting carried away by thoughts, and to just pull the brakes earlier.
See, I'm completely on board with that. I just don't know that requires me to lose any sense of self. I can look at something and say, it's a waste of my time to keep mulling over this thing that happened, so let it go and move on to the next thing.
I've been, with you, and you've done some of these things and stage, and And I admire that ability in many ways, and I admire, I think this mindfulness, I do think, is useful at times, but I also think, though, as human beings, that it's also really useful to be mindless at times, and get wrapped up in those things.
We're using
and that's
the words the same way, but
no, but I think, not get. I think it's sometimes really useful to get wrapped up in these things, and grow from that. So I guess the point is that I think it's a good. I think you're right that it's these tools and these training to be more mindful is a useful thing. Let's agree there.
okay.
With
all the caveats implied, but
no, I think it's a useful thing, and I think, and I see you, and you're just calm, and I wish I could be that calm, and I'm just not.
Yeah.
I just think of that Woody Allen line all the time about meditation.
What?
He doesn't meditate because he ripens and then he rots. And
Woody Allen. Can we still refer to Woody Allen?
I was noticing there was a hush when I mentioned the name.
Is there a Bill
so I'm going to
Cosby
say it
line
again.
you
Woody
wanna
Allen. He's actually a very funny guy and a great film director, and so I think it's okay to mention the name.
Well, I think we've taken
We've
this
lost
about
half
as
the
far as we
audience
can
now.
go.
Yeah. And you talk about mindfulness as a buzzword, at least within clinical psychology and treatment. I don't care about the buzzword aspect of it, but I love the fact that we can teach people how to be aware of what's going on and how to be aware of what they're doing in such a way that they may be able to overcome things without having to resort to pharmaceuticals and other things. Although perhaps I don't know how far that can be taken, and I will at least concede that while I'm not convinced that what you say is possible from a purely philosophical, who is the observer, moving the self down to where it may be co-equal with consciousness. I'm also not necessarily convinced that it's beneficial fully, but I'm with Lawrence in that I see...
It wouldn't have to be benefit. I mean, it's either true or not. So it's like it's possible that the self is an illusion, but seeing it to be illusory is actually bad for you, or is a net neutral. There's no guarantee that it's good for you, but it just so happens to be good for you psychologically, as testified by people who've done it.
Well, that's what I worry about, testified people who've done what's good for them.
But again, it's like exercise.
But
or
I would love to
diet
spend
or,
a day. I really have thought about this. I'd love to spend a day with you. I mean, I'd love to learn new experiences and new techniques as one of a handful, because I'm alive for a little while. And I'd like to have certainly the conscious experiences that are possible. And I would like to learn those tools. And
have all of them at Burning Man.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't know if I could give you something in return, but I would love to do that. But I just think of it as, it is a remarkable thing to be able to experience the full kind of gamut of things that consciousness allows. And experiencing that gamut, I suspect, is good for everyone, because it gives us a greater perspective on ourselves and the universe, which is why I do science. So we'll spend a day together.
It might, if I only have a day, it might require drugs. So
I'm not opposed to that.
You're a hard case, Lawrence.
And we can start there.
Well, I think I have a better understanding than I did in New York, and I'm intrigued about other stuff. And so that raises a question, because this issue, obviously, you're presenting your experience, and it's very different from a bodybuilder's experience, because we can see that, and we can see certain things in your character, although I don't have your previous character to compare it to.
Well, just to give you one local example that someone might find interesting here. I used to be terrified of public speaking. I mean, that was actually just something, I would not do something like this. And mindfulness is not the only antidote to being afraid of public speaking, but it is certainly a very useful component to it. I mean, there's no alternative to just speaking, right? You can't privately get over your fear of public speaking without ever speaking. But what you can do is, so if you feel anxiety before getting up on stage or giving a toast or putting yourself out there in some way, you can be willing. Mindfulness is, rather than avoidance of this feeling of anxiety, it's a willingness to just feel it without judgment, without trying to push it away, without trying to change it. Just feel it as energy in your body. And if you do that, it loses its psychological significance. It becomes something like indigestion or a pain in your knee, or something that doesn't capture your whole personality. It's just energy. It's just an appearance in consciousness. And if you allow yourself to do that, well, then the half-life of this thing is.
I guess I've been mindful. Yeah, I never thought of it in those terms. I have always thought that kind of anxiety or whatever is a good thing, and just sort of accept it.
Well, but that's a
speaking, or when I
yeah.
teach too. I try to be as unprepared as possible, so that no, seriously, to some extent, because I think it's good to have that kind of anxious thought that people can see what you're thinking.
Yes.
And I think
that's not debilitating anxiety. That's
no, it's not debilitating.
Yeah.
Were you debilitated?
Well, I was avoidant of the whole project. I just wouldn't.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh? When was that? Because I know you for a while.
But before when my first book came out, I suddenly discovered I had to do a book tour, and there was just.
But I met you just around the time your first book came out. You seemed pretty.
Well,
Zen even then.
Well, I had been meditating.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay.
So I was terrified of public speaking, which is why I didn't become a preacher. The people in my church is like, oh, God wants you to be a preacher, and I didn't want to do that, and I was terrified of it. My solution to being afraid of public speaking, and I say this kind of half as a joke and half serious, is turns out if you're not trying to bullshit anybody and you're not overly concerned about people perhaps not agreeing or not liking with you, public speaking is a piece of cake.
Yeah.
It is. You just talk.
Well, that helps.
It's one way.
It's funny because I think of that because when I watch musicians come out, and I think, God, I used to think it would be terrifying to do that, and then I realized they're just comfortable. They're doing what they feel comfortable doing, and what can be more comfortable than just having a nice conversation? So it's interesting that I wish I could do that. I wish I could be as comfortable playing music as, but yeah, just talking. I never seemed to me to be an issue.
But it's a hugely common fear. It might even be the most common fear. And it's not, but what you just suggested, thinking about the anxiety differently, or noticing that anxiety doesn't feel that different from something like excitement.
Yeah.
It has a very different, that you interpret differently. That's called reframing, and that's something that is also, that's a useful skill to have. It's just
they've co-opted everything that works.
I don't like, it's all these labels are fine, but okay, if that's what it is.
But it's different than what I'm recommending. But yeah, both are good. You can do both.
So we'll give.
Again, we're at loggerheads. Yeah. Maybe we should both be afraid of public speaking now.
Yeah, I think many of the people in the audience wish we were right now, actually,
Yes.
because we probably move on to something
They're going to
else.
prove me wrong by booing us all off. So, Lawrence, what's the next big thing in physics? And for those of us who haven't been paying attention, what's the big thing now?
Okay. Well, I do get asked, the first question I get asked a lot, the answer is always the same, which is, if I knew, I'd be doing it. It's really important because the whole point of discovery is it's discovery. So the next big thing in physics will be the thing that I didn't expect. Will be the biggest surprise that I can get. That's why science is fun, because you're constantly surprised. At least for me, that's the whole point. So I think I can imagine areas where there's lots of activity. Generally, if we're building in science, or at least in physics, the next big thing will come from an area where we have a new window on the universe. Because science and physics, even though I'm a theoretical physicist, is driven by experiment. It's not driven by theory. And so therefore the surprises come from nature. And so every time we open a new window on the universe, we're surprised. And that then brings me, I guess, to the current big thing. So let me say, there are areas where we have, obviously, astronomy. We have a lot of new telescopes. The James Webb Space Telescope's going to go up next year. There's quantum computing is an exciting area because it's a window on processes that might be relevant to understanding how we think too. But the current big thing is this new window on the universe, I'd say, which is gravitational waves. The fact that in this room, when I do this or wave my hands, which I do all the time, I'm generating gravitational waves. And it's squeezing your head.
I've been feeling that.
And it's getting smaller and bigger, and then this end is getting smaller and bigger. And that it's happening, and that it's here, and yet we never thought we detected it because gravity is the weakest force in nature. And let me just say one thing for those who haven't heard me talk about this. The discovery of gravitational waves is amazing because it seems impossible. The fact that anyone would imagine they could do this. So to try, gravitational waves are more intense for more violent explosions or more violent motions of matter. And nothing could be more violent in this universe today than, say, two black holes colliding. So we build this detector to try and look for black holes colliding around the universe, and those would produce the most intense gravitational waves you can measure. And so we build this LIGO detector, which has two arms. Each is 4 kilometers long, and if a gravitational wave comes by, it's really simple. One arm will get shorter, the other one will get longer, and we just have to measure that difference. Sounds easy. But to build a detector that could detect gravitational waves from the most violent events in the universe today, colliding black holes, you'd have to build a detector that could tell the difference in length between two 4-kilometer-long arms. When a gravitational wave comes by, one arm would change in length by an amount equal to 1/1000th the size of a proton. Okay? Yeah. No science fiction writer would ever suggest that's possible. That's what we did. I mean, it's amazing to me that's the kind of thing that, and it requires bravery, it requires dedication, and luck. The wonderful thing about that particular discovery that amazes me, it was a discovery of two black holes colliding 1.3 billion light years away. That means the signal took 1.3 billion years to get there. The detector went online. It went online 15 years earlier, but it was upgraded so it could do this. And they started to test it on September 15th, I guess 2015. And Ray Weiss, who was one of the designers of it and won the Nobel Prize along with others for the discovery, told the students, this is just an engineering run, don't take data. And of course, they didn't listen. And an hour after it turned on, that's when the discovery was made. An hour. Now just think that signal had been going for 1.3 billion years. If they turned it on an hour later, we would have missed it.
But how often is it being pinged? I mean,
well, we didn't know how often it would be pinged. We had ideas that it would be pinged maybe a few times, maybe once every month, maybe once every 2 weeks, maybe a few times every year. And I will tell you I'll stop talking physics in a second, but I'll tell you one of the neatest things for who's wearing gold right now in the audience. Yeah, okay, good. Don't tell people out in Chicago when you walk out there. Okay, so another event that was seen this year was not two black holes colliding, but two things called neutron stars, which are amazing. It's stars, the size of the Earth collapsing to the size of Chicago in 1 second, producing a giant atomic nucleus called a neutron star, basically, whose density is billions of tons for each teaspoonful of material, okay? When those collapsed together, that binary black hole collided, unlike black holes, which are just a lot of nothing, just gravity, there's nothing there but a hole in space that has gravity, neutron stars have stuff. So LIGO and another detector, which then came on later, discovered these neutron stars, by the way, spinning around each other, each the mass of the sun, spinning around each other 200 times a second, which is amazing that it happens. When they collided, not only gravitational waves came out, but stuff came out. So the LIGO detector discovered it and told all the astronomers in the world, look. And they looked, and we saw X-rays and gamma rays and visible light, and we could study all these things we never saw before. And what we discovered, we never knew where things like gold came from. Because in stars, you build things up to iron. But where do the heavy elements came from? Well, people thought maybe the collision of neutron stars. And what we could see from the X-ray radiation after that, in the days following, we saw that an Earth's mass amount of gold was created. Wow, that's cool. Something we predicted. But it really means every time, if you're wearing gold, that stuff was created in the collision of two neutron stars, and it's on your hand now. It wouldn't be there. You are really cosmic things, and I just find that amazing, that connection to the universe.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the physics segment. Now we'll go into
You just sold a
stuff.
lot of gold.
Yeah.
Buy gold, people.
Yeah, sure. No, it's become less valuable now because there's a little more of it in the universe, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't
Sell
quite
your
get
gold.
to it. We could start a neutron star cryptocurrency.
Yeah. It's true. It'd probably be as real as the other cryptocurrencies.
Although, for something like the LIGO detector, the mere fact that you can measure the device sufficiently to construct it should mean that when you turn it on, you would just expect it to work, because now you know how to measure.
No, you don't know if you're right. We didn't even know if black holes, solar mass black holes existed in the universe. We had ideas that they might, but we didn't know that.
We don't know when it's going to get pinged, but I'm saying the marvelous thing to me, and I could be wrong because I don't know shit, but is the precision of measurement required to construct it is the same as the precision.
Yeah, but how do you know if you're when a truck hits a pothole 25 miles away, it produces a bigger signal than the signal from a black hole. So how do you know you're going to be able to separate it from the noise, which is one of the reasons why there are two of them. There's one in Hanford, Washington, one in Livingston, Louisiana, because it takes 8 milliseconds for something traveling at the speed of light to go, which gravitational waves do, from one to the other. So you get lots of noise from wind, from all sorts of things, but what you do is you look for the same signal in Livingston, Louisiana, 8 milliseconds later than the one in Hanford, Washington, and that gets a lot. But still, the idea that you could somehow isolate that much noise was something I personally was extremely skeptical about. That whether you could measure that distance is one thing, but the fact that you could separate everything else out, the fact that you could lose all that other stuff,
Are you learning anything from this history of your own skepticism?
Yeah, no, well, I was skeptical of that too, but unlike other things, that was definitely a good thing.
Yeah, well.
No, I'm being hard on you.
Someone can teach you to build your own LIGO detector. And
I couldn't
you will
build
not
it. I'm a
detect
theorist.
yourself.
I'm amazed at experimentalists. That's why I'm not an experimentalist, because it was 25, 30 years, almost 40 years to build it. Just like the Large Hadron Collider, all the fact that people are willing, and we still are willing, hopefully, to devote lifetimes to discover things that have no practical significance whatsoever is wonderful. And no, I'm serious. Because
what do you make of that? So say more about that, because that sounds like a decadent thing to say.
No, it's not, because the problem is that the best thing about science, the problem with science is it produces practical things. And it's great. We wouldn't be here. Most of the people in the room wouldn't be alive, and we wouldn't be able to communicate if it weren't for those practical things. But people don't realize that the real virtue of science is a cultural virtue. It's the same virtue as art, music, literature, is to see ourselves in a new way. The same way the experience you get when you meditate, to experience ourselves in a new way, to get a new perspective on our place in the cosmos. And we never ask, if the Art Institute is nearby, we never ask if a Picasso painting, what's a Picasso painting good for?
Some people do, yeah.
Well, exactly. And one of my quote I've been framing a lot lately, because it means a lot to me as I think of the current situation we're in, which I try not to. So when the budget for this new person who's there came out, so the first budget, so zeroing out the National Endowment for the Arts, zeroing out the National Endowment for the Humanities, zeroing out the Institute of Museums, for example, all these things, zeroing out the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. We're going to save $1.6 billion, a line item in there for a wall of $1.8 billion. What makes America great is the cultural things we generate, the things that enhance the experience of being human. And the quote that I liked is from the first director of the Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory, Robert Wilson, who was asked by Congress in 1965, what will this accelerator help in the defense of the nation? And he said, no, but it'll help keep the nation worth defending. If we don't have that, I mean, to think that we would get rid of all of the things that make life worth living, which is the cultural things that we enjoy, to build a wall is just the stupidest thing in the world. And we should, well, you can comment that too, but it doesn't, and it is decadent. But when we are so bereft of any economic well-being that we cannot afford to continue to ask fundamental questions of the universe and ourselves, it's over as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that you can never tell. I mean, even if you're convinced that the real virtue in science is helping people, you can never tell where the line between just mere curiosity and useful knowledge.
You don't know what's going to happen. And I mean,
yeah,
50% of our gross national product came from curiosity-driven research.
Yeah.
That's why it's a big problem nowadays. And a lot of people say, we got to fund applied research in this and that. And that may help in the short term. But what's going to create the economic well-being of society 25 years from now is the research in fundamental curiosity-driven things. And when you say it's true that maybe science, I actually don't think the purpose of science is to
No,
do
I was
good.
just conceding to those people who do.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and you know, anyone who's done science knows that the reason we do science is very selfish, because we enjoy it. And and when kids ask me, I say, you know, just do what you enjoy. And that's the real reason science. They don't want to make the world great. Of course, they would like that as a byproduct, but they just want to do what they enjoy, and that's why people do science. That's why people do music. That's why people do magic. And if you don't enjoy it, you're not good at it. And so kids now, that's another problem. I think too many kids are being driven to not realize that, you know, we all end up doing things we don't enjoy, and many people end up in jobs that they might not. But when you're young, you shouldn't be driven to be looking for a career that's without being at least focusing on what you enjoy at the very beginning. And then if you have to give that up later, it's fine. But I really am sad to see a generation of young people being driven by you know, I want to go into Wall Street or something because I can make money quickly. And it's it should be the joy. That's the central thing to do. Anyway.
There was a question, and now I have to rethink it, because it was, how do we encourage the next generation to care about science and truth? But if the real value is in encouraging them to do what they love, how do we get them to love truth? In a world where, you know, none of us can be experts about everything, some of us aren't experts about anything, and anybody can cite their own expert, and in a world of fake news and you don't know who to trust, I get this sense that people in general are giving up on whether or not they have access to truth, and I worry that the next generation coming up just won't even have a good enough understanding to begin to care about what's real.
The problem is the new generation has got a lot bigger challenge than the old one, than certainly when I was growing up. And the problem is that we teach the new generation as if they're before. We in schools, still many people have this notion schools are to provide information, but there's more information in my iPhone than there is in school, but there's more misinformation. And so what schools should be teaching is not that information. It's a process for deriving. It's a process for finding out facts. It's not a bunch of facts. Science, it's a process for deriving facts. So it's the process we need to teach, the process to tell the crap from the nonsense from the real stuff. That's what science is all about. And we have to teach that skeptical process in schools. And that's all I care about, kids learning in schools, because most of what I've certainly learned as a physicist, I've learned after I got my PhD. And I think what you really want to build are lifelong learners, and that is not giving them a bunch of facts about when the Battle of Hastings was, or what the 92 elements are, or any of the other things that people are forced too often to memorize, which causes them not to like science. It's a process of discovery, and that process of discovery is learning how, not truth so much, but learning how to separate out the nonsense. And I think when you say, how do you get people excited about it, I think people are born excited about it. What we do is we beat it out of them. Kids are natural scientists. No, well, I'm keep giving these applause lines. I didn't mean to do that. But
those are machines. We put those machines there.
Make me feel better, because I need that. You don't, because you're in yourself.
That's right. I think there's more than that, though. I mean, I think implicit in something you just said is, I think, a crisis of meaning that people are feeling that is more than just loving science or loving truth or not wanting to be wrong. There's some scientists, even not all scientists, can get meaning out of doing what they love and having that be science. Meaning? But not everyone's born to be a scientist. Not everyone is that curious at the end of the day, and they still struggle to have a life that's worth living. And obviously, this is where religion is doing so much work for so many people. And what we're noticing now is, I really see this focused quite almost to a laser beam in the sudden rise of Jordan Peterson, who we were talking about earlier, who has some fans. I count myself one, in fact, in that, I've had some terrible conversations with him, but I notice other people have great conversations with him. And when I hear him in conversation with those other people, fully 90% of what he says I think is great. But there's 10% that makes no sense, and that 10% really matters. And what that 10%, and the fact that that 10% is surviving criticism among his fans, or not receiving any criticism, reveals to me that there really is a hunger for a kind of quasi-religious, there's got to be more than reason way of thinking. And actually, I thought that there's an analogy to draw to magic, because there's real magic and there's fake magic, right? And actually, I think Dan Dennett was the one to point out that there's kind of a paradox here, because the real magic is in fact fake, and fake magic is the magic that people think might be real.
It was either Dan or Randy. I can never get the citation right.
So the magic that's not really magic, but that relies on props and subterfuge and sleight of hand, that's the real magic. And then there's fake magic that people believe in, and it's not really there. And it's as though people, and the pleasure of enjoying real magic is not predicated on believing in the fake magic. It's not like when you do a magic trick, my pleasure in being on the receiving end of the trick is knowing that I got fooled, knowing that I can't figure it out, knowing that it's not real magic, or it is real magic, but it's not supernatural, and that's the mystery. That's what's cool about it. Right now, there are people who are out there pretending to have the supernatural skills. This happens in India. Someone with your skills goes to India, and they go to the ashram, and they can Satya Sai Baba, this afro-headed guru in Bangalore for years, was materializing ash and jewelry for people, and had tens of thousands of credulous students around him for decades. And he was clearly just a stage magician, but what Peterson's style of talking about myth and Jungian psychology and religion and the tools he's advocating that people use, part of the communication is that you need to relax your standard of intellectual honesty in order to make the most of these tools. It's almost like to really have fun with magic, I have to think that something really spooky is going on, and that's clearly false. And there has to be an adult, intellectually honest way of using archetypal thinking, if it's at all useful. I mean, you have to be. There should be no place at which you need to lie to yourself or pretend to know something you don't know.
The problem is, look, there should be no place, but we all lie to ourselves. I mean, we do it every day. You don't, but the rest of us do. No, we all tell ourselves, that we like our jobs or our spouses or we want to be on stage or whatever. And we're not just rational beings. And I talk to my friend Rich Dawkins about this all the time when we're on stage. He doesn't understand that you could be not rational. But so we all want to believe it, like the X-Files. We all have these built-in. It's probably evolution. Of course, it's evolution. It's evolutionary psychology that's caused us to want to believe in certain things beyond ourselves for many reasons. And so what we have to do is learn, just like you learn, I could use the analogy actually to the tools you were talking about there. The tools of science are tools we have to learn. They're not natural, they're not easy, they're not intuitive, but they're tools that you need to build up, and we all need to build those tools up to inoculate ourselves against nonsense. And we need to more now than ever before, because the internet has got you've got to have tools to tell the sense from the nonsense. And so, what's great about science is that it's 400 years of tools that have been built up, simple tools that we can use to get over our natural willingness to believe certain things, like that which happens to us is significant, which is just, we all believe that everything that happens to us is significant. And we've got to overcome that notion that that natural notion, and the only way I know to do that is science. But to not accept that it's there is of course naive, and it will always be there, and people will always be able to appeal to it. I suspect there'll always be con artists and churches, and it'd be nice if there weren't. But I think what we need to do is find a way to. People are convinced that they get more comfort from that, and what we have to work is to try and convince people that you can get comfort from not knowing, and from having an uncertain future, and being insignificant in a universe that doesn't give a damn about you.
Or you can be less uncomfortable about not knowing. For me, and you talked about it before, but we're sort of essentially beating the sense of discovery and exploration out of natural scientists. How many times has a kid been in a classroom terrified that they're going to be asked a question because they don't know the answer and they desperately don't want to say, I don't know. And yet, I don't know is not only probably, in their case, the right answer, it may be the right answer for all of us.
But all teachers and parents
how should we go?
Should all, I don't know is the most important thing that we should be able to be comfortable saying as adults. And it's, because I just thought of this a while ago. I was in Ireland. There was a wonderful movie that I guess I was in a little bit called it's about the Voyager spacecraft. The Farthest. You should watch it. It's a very beautiful movie that was made. But I was talking to some people about education, and it's amazing to realize that when any child learns something for the first time, it's the first time in the history of the world for them that it's been understood. And never comes about except for that I don't know part. Because what you need to do is say, I don't know either, let's figure it out. And then learning becomes a process of discovery instead of regurgitation. And that's what should be, that's the orgasmic experience that everyone should have.
I want to...
Hopefully
short
of orgasm.
There's about 5 more minutes before we start taking questions, so if folks want to line up and remember the rules that I had before. But I kind of want to keep going on this, not the Jordan Peterson thing. You're going to have another discussion with him. I'm going to have one in April, and I don't know enough to know whether I give him a 90-10 split. But this idea of meaning and purpose in life, you were lucky enough in New York, and Lawrence had met him before. Chris Johnson came to that event, and he did the coffee table book, which is at like theatheistbook.com, but it's 100 atheists giving their thoughts on meaning and purpose in a life without God. And when I hear someone like Oprah suggesting that atheists can't experience awe, and then I listen to Lawrence describing a lifetime of experiencing awe and how we can encourage that, it seems like this is something that should be obviously false to people.
Yeah. It's really sad.
And yet it's not obviously false. It is outside of where do we get our morals from. This idea of meaning and purpose, and how atheists and seculars can't have meaning and purpose in life, or there can't be any meaning and purpose in a deterministic universe, that's like the second most common thing that we hear.
Yeah.
If somebody's not actually making a classical argument for the existence of God, it's just like, how sad would life be if I had to stop believing in a God? And I remember at one of the events, there were some Catholic students sitting in the back who during the Q&A thought they'd pull a gotcha by asking Russell and I, but which worldview is most beautiful? And my immediate response was, I don't care. I don't care which one's more beautiful. I care which one's more true. But if you want to know, I would think that the atheistic worldview would be more beautiful. Hitchens would talk about how terrible it would be to think that somebody's watching you. But we don't consider our meaning and purpose in life. You guys talk to students all the time. If there's students in the room, do you want your parents to pick your major for you? Do you want your school or your state to assign it?
To get back to go complete circle to what Sam was talking about earlier, I think people make too much of meaning and purpose. Namely, we should recognize that we make our own meaning and purpose. and it's our own. And but in an objective sense, it's as big an illusion as Sam would say the self is.
Well, that's what I was getting to, is
and so that's okay.
We would rebel if the state tried to tell us what our meaning and purpose was. We would rebel if our parents or the school tried to tell us what our meaning and purpose is. And yet, for some reason, in the broadest range possible, people seem to laud this idea that they need to be given their lifelong meaning and purpose externally from a God.
Externally, yeah. But also they want their meaning and purpose to be the same. They want it to somehow have some more significance, because again, everyone wants to be significant. So somehow your meaning and purpose has to have a cosmic significance, and Oprah is the prototypical example of that.
I think there's. I don't think we're as insignificant as you let on, because I think you can, again, taking consciousness as the focus. As far as we know, there's no place in the universe that is more meaningful than right here. I mean, the human consciousness is the best game in town that we know about.
Yeah,
and so that's a big deal. And
no, it's a big deal. It's a big deal because we're here. But if we were there, then it wouldn't be such a big deal, right?
What would be over there? Just
maybe there's other conscious beings.
Well,
there might be other conscious beings. The point is,
but we don't know that.
If you're right, if we are the only, we should. I think I agree with you that we should. It's sensible to act as if we're the only conscious organisms in the universe, because maybe then we'll begin to take care of the planet on which we live in a way that can make that sustainable.
But
that's true.
But the reason, so there's an implicit value judgment there, which is, I think, is one I certainly agree with, which is if we manage to play our hand so badly as to cancel the future of our species, right? If we don't get through this bottleneck of the 21st century, that would be tragic. And it would be tragic only because of all the good and beautiful things we and our descendants won't get to do, because this is where the lights are on. I mean, this is the only place in the universe where we know the lights of consciousness are on.
Yeah, I guess so.
And in my, why is that such a lackluster?
No, you're absolutely right. It's a wonderful. No, I'm happy to be conscious right now. It's a great, while I have a chance, it's not only the best game in town, it's the only game in town.
You were just talking about a kid learning the Pythagorean theorem for the first time.
No, it's fantastic. We should all realize that we have a brief moment in the sun and make the most of it. But I'm just thinking in a cosmic sense, it is true. First of all, whatever happens, everything that ever happened to everyone in this room is going to be, in a cosmic sense, is going to completely disappear and be forgotten. So it has no cosmic significance whatsoever. Everything all the beauty, the Shakespeare plays, the art, the music, it's all gone in the far future.
But the cosmos has no cosmic significance either.
But the neat thing is, let's say we go, and then it's not clear that there won't be other consciousness that arises on this planet afterwards. And that would be wonderful then too. So, let's enjoy it, and let's. We don't have a choice. We do seem to have a choice, and some people in the White House don't mind not having a consciousness.
This is where they get to. This is where some of the particular theists get to the fatalism, the idea that, in the end, none of it's going to matter. And that always bugs me, because I'm like, who gives a shit about the end?
Yeah,
it matters
exactly.
now.
Exactly.
The car I bought is going to rust away someday, but it gets me where I'm going now.
Let's take, from what I learned from my good friend Christopher Hitchens, one of the more evil people in the world. Not Christopher, Mother Teresa.
Yes.
So I learned from him how evil she was, and she was evil for exactly that reason. Because if you realize that what we have is what we got now, and there ain't anything afterwards, then this becomes more precious.
Yes.
This becomes everything. But if you're like Mother Teresa, then you say, the kids should suffer now. We shouldn't give them medication, because in heaven, they'll benefit from it. And so you see the exact opposite. Take the real existence and make it as miserable as possible for some illusion in the future, versus accepting reality and enjoying it.
Well, to bring us full circle, I think her fetish with suffering could benefit from some of what Sam was talking about, of her potentially losing her sense of self earlier. I don't know if I trampled over something you were going to add, but
no, it's just implicit in that fear, that theistic fear about what's the point if this doesn't last forever, is it completely diminishes the significance of now, as you said. I mean, it's the strangest idea to think that now doesn't matter at all if it doesn't last for eternity.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's like if ever there were a bizarre intuition, that has to be one.
And that somehow we don't matter if the universe wasn't made for us. That somehow it makes us, you know, it means we can't enjoy it or feel meaning in ourselves or care about, or our experiences are irrelevant. If the whole universe wasn't created for us, what a more arrogant, I can't imagine a more arrogant, you know, and it really pisses me off in groups like the Templeton Foundation that pretend to support science in the name of religion.
You're just making friends all night.
Yeah, I know. Because they say, we want the humble approach, as if science, I mean, and religious people say scientists are arrogant, but it's what's more arrogant? What's more solipsistic than assuming the whole universe is made for us, whereas science is saying, you know, hey, it isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
On that note, if we can get the lights up around the microphones where people are clearly lined up all the way out the doors so we can see.
Are people really lined up? No, they're not. Where are the microphones?
So for my first trick, I'll make the microphones vanish.
Where's the microphone?
From their place. There they are.
Oh, they're coming. Oh, I get it.
See, these people are far more organized than we are.
Are there any up there?
This notion that, you know, this is one of the reasons why I tend to focus so much on religion. I do the Atheist Experience show. I'm convinced that people have been sold a bill of goods that devalues all of humanity, and
Oh shit!
I don't know.
Moved.
Yeah, well,
Okay,
but it explicitly does do that. It says it does that. That's not a surprise.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, they want to ask questions.
And I bought into it. We'll start over here, sir. And just if you're comfortable with it, say your name and who your question's for, or if it's for all of us, and we'll try not to trample over.
Okay, my name is Dov Weiss. I'm a professor of religion at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I teach the history of Judaism. I'm not a believer. My question for you, Sam, is do you see any value in studying religion from an academic perspective? And how do you feel about the fact that taxpayer dollars go to support the research that people like I do? In other words, can the study of religion contribute to our understanding of society and culture, or is religion best left to the ash heaps of history like magic or other superstitions?
I think it's a fine thing to study. We study many things, again, that are not narrowly tied to utility. I mean, I can make a very good utilitarian argument for studying religion because so many people believe it in earnest. So it's even more worth studying than something perhaps like art history or something that is purely about aesthetics. But I've got no problem with the funding of art history. So to connect with what Lauren said, I mean, I said decadent because that's a possible criticism, but the reality is it's a sign of the wealth of our civilization that we can spend time on ineffectual things. Right? I mean, that's just merely beautiful, merely curiosity-driven things. You know, the archaeology. You know, what's the use in that, right?
By the way, I often, you know, when questions are directed at Sam, I'll answer them too.
Yep.
Whether but no, religion. I mean, it's even more important than that. Not just it's so many people believe now. Religion is a central part of human history. So, if you're interested in understanding modern civilization, it would be insane not to understand the impact of religion because it's been one of the most important cultural components of humans since humans have been humans.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And as long as the funds aren't being used for proselytizing, I'm all in favor of it. I've been saying that comparative religions courses shouldn't be electives. They should be mandatory.
Well, and actually, to be even more specific, there's probably no more effective way to become an atheist than study religion.
Yep. On this side now, yes, sir.
Hi. This question is for Sam, or really anyone who wants to jump in. The new atheist is often accused of a kind of sociological...
We can't hear you.
You got to get a little closer to the mic, I think.
Yeah.
The new atheism is often accused of a kind of sociological blindness or insensitivity. My question is, given sort of... I think Sam has been unique among new atheists in acknowledging the need for a social equivalent of religion or some sort of something that performed the social functions of religion. But at the same time, I mean, it's sort of left vague and you're not entirely certain. So my question is, why is it worth destroying something you acknowledge as sort of sociologically vital and utilitarian in order to, why is it worth destroying that before you sort of know what to put in its place? And I'm asking it particularly in the context of like the social crisis among the working class, which I mean is often attributed to the collapse in social capital, which is basically a euphemism in part for the collapse of organized religion.
Right, right. Well, I guess two answers. One is that it's not a matter of aiming to destroy religion just to destroy religion. It's wanting to talk honestly about what we know to be true, or have good reason to believe is true, or good reason to believe is false. And so it's very much in the attitude of science, just trying to figure out what's real. But I would add that the reason why I hope we will one day empty the churches and empty the mosques is because of all the harm that way of thinking manifestly does.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
that's
so,
the key point.
And I think the harms of religion vastly outweigh the benefits, and we can have those benefits by other means, and we get those benefits in other ways, in a kind of piecemeal way. Yeah. And yes, I would argue that there are blind spots in secularism, and we need to fill in some of those holes. But no, I mean, just you take the extreme case. You take fundamentalist Islam, or fundamentalist Christianity, or the Jehovah's Witnesses, or Scientology, or just take the hardcore, most devout of any dispensation. The downside is it just advertises itself.
It's not just the extremes. I used to think in terms of those extremes until I got more involved.
That's the easiest place.
Yeah, it's the easiest place. Of course, it's easiest to look at those extremes, but it was only, I think, after I did that movie with Richard, The Unbelievers, that I get letters, and we both do, that I had never appreciated the really insidious aspect of religion, in my mind, the most insidious. It's not those extremes. It's all the people in these communities that feel bad about themselves because they ask questions, because they doubt. Yeah. And I get those letters all the time, and yeah, okay, you don't need to talk, but they feel alone too. They feel like they're the only ones, and they feel bad for it. And that is in my mind, I think the really insidious aspect that's far more common than people realize, because everyone doubts, and we should all be encouraged to doubt. But also to add what Sam said, it's this notion, it's not as if you're tearing things down. And we use that word loss of faith as if you're losing something. When you lose faith, you're not losing anything. We need to ask, and what Sam said, I agree with 100%, can we ask what are the good things that religion provides in the sense of community or some sense of belonging, and ask, can we do it in a way that's real? Because why do it in a way that depends on fairy tales? Because, again, to bring up Noam, he said to me once, I don't care what people believe, it's what they do. But the problem is what they believe influences what they do. Yeah. And if your worldview is based on nonsense, then you're going to do nonsense. Anyway. Okay, well, now we can plot again.
Hi, my name is Lucy Anderson, and thank you so much, Matt, for bringing up the idea of truth. Because that's what my question is about. I'm going to ask you guys to tap into your creative side here and tell me if you had an artist who you could commission to make a piece called Truth, and they were going to just depict truth in the most intense and perfect way, what would they make? What do you want the artist to make? Sam, don't say like a copy of the Magritte painting with the clouds over the face.
Well, if I could give you a off-the-cuff answer that would be satisfying, I would be that artist. Yeah.
I think I'll start then. Okay, yes. I could do it because I think the best example of truth would be a blank canvas.
With gesso or
no, just blank,
fiber?
Nothing on it, blank stuff. Because that's what that's to me, because it invites you. It's inviting to you to create something, and
oh, I think that's dangerous.
Hold on, but hold on. No, I'm not saying that in the pat way. I mean that. Truth is really an anathema to science. I mean, believe it or not, science isn't all about finding truth. In physics, there's no such thing as absolute truth as far as we know. We just there's things that are likely and things that are unlikely, and there are things that are wrong. There's absolute falsehood.
Yeah,
that's true. There's absolute wrong.
You're falsifying against a sense that the reality is some way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And you're trying to get closer and closer
So
to it.
that's your
but there's
truth.
no idea that encompasses all of reality exactly as far as we know. Some string theorists hope they would do that, but they haven't. And so I'm not being facetious. They really did think there might be a theory that described nature on all scales. We have no physical theory. The best physical theory in the universe right now is something called quantum electrodynamics. It's great, but it only works over part of the range of life. So we have this blank canvas, and to try and pretend we're capturing truth is always, to some extent, illusion. It's illusion. It's getting closer and closer, but never real.
Yeah, and I'm partially on board with the idea that I don't know that we necessarily have access to truth. I don't think we have absolute certainty about anything. For me, the painting, because I have a compatibility model, where essentially truth is that which conforms to reality. So any accurate painting of nature would be sufficient of me to pick truth. And absent that, I think I'd like just a single Venn diagram with one circle with A and not A, and then I'm fine.
But when you say yeah, okay, that's good. I like that. But when you say conforms to reality, what you really mean is you make predictions and you test them, and you see if they're right. That's what it means to conform to reality. There's no other definition that I can think of.
Yes.
Or you see when they're wrong. I mean, your falsifiability is the measure of
Yeah. I mean, so you're capturing some aspect of reality if you're right, but you're not necessarily right.
You're not wrong
But you
yet.
know when you're wrong, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And then it's just like Sherlock Holmes said, you get rid of all the stuff that doesn't work, and what's left is probably got some semblance of reality.
Tentative, probabilistic, blah, blah, blah.
Thank you.
Well, that's why we should never use the word believe.
No.
I
unavoidable.
try not to use it anymore, but it's either likely or unlikely. It's not that I believe this or believe that. Remember that. Don't ever use it.
And go back and watch the event that we did that Krauss and I did in Toronto, where I am fully fine with the idea of using the word believe and not the word faith. But we had that.
Yeah,
back
and you were wrong then too, but it's okay.
And yet, curiously, he agreed with me, because if by belief all you mean is I am convinced that this is likely the case, then there's nothing wrong with saying I believe.
And I can be convinced otherwise if it's not.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
This is a question for the entire panel. Please feel free to draw on your own personal experiences when you answer this. But tonight, you stressed the importance of raising a future generation that believes in science and reason and is free from faith and Stone Age myths. Sam, you've described religion in the past as being a motherlode of all bad ideas. I'm trying to raise a 2-year-old in a part of the country that has more churches than museums or libraries, unfortunately. What would you recommend would be the best way, and at what age would you address these issues with them so that they can be raised without internal anxieties, without feeling ostracized from their community, but without the motherlode of bad ideas on board before reason and science has a chance to improve their lives and have them grow it further?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing to recognize is that your 2-year-old is already a non-believer, right? Your 2-year-old does not. So if you don't screw that up by...
Just keep it, just don't screw it up. That's right.
Reality will cooperate, and I mean, but my view of this is that you don't want to... You don't want to put your kid in a situation that is starkly uncomfortable. You're not raising a little atheist to put on the front lines of this culture war, right? So, in my experience, raising 2 girls, I've never had to lie to them about anything, and the questions come when they come, and these kinds of considerations become relevant when they become relevant. And you're not teaching them contempt for other people. You're not teaching them contempt for the people they will meet who are religious. You're teaching them difference. I mean, some people celebrate Hanukkah, some people celebrate Christmas. It all can be in the spirit of understanding the world's religions in an academic sense, and just aesthetic differences and cultural differences, and different kinds of foods, and none of it need acquire the charge of sectarianism until they're grown-ups and they can actually deal with just how closely people hold these beliefs and how freaked out they get when they're challenged. So I haven't, you know, again, I haven't walked into this. My oldest daughter's 9, but even as, I mean, she knows exactly what we believe and don't believe, and she, you know, she's aghast that anyone believes these things, but she's socialized to the point where she's not, you know, she's not an asshole, right? So she just, so it's not hard.
It's really, you know, your point is really well taken, especially if you live in you know, you don't want. One of the reasons that I heard at a skeptical meeting why there may be fewer women who are there is because of the fact that in certain communities, if you're recognized as a non-believing family, people don't want your kids to come over there or vice versa. And so, and caregivers who are in the world, for the most part, are generally more often women, are more sensitive to that and are more hesitant to have their children labeled that way. And any label is a bad label in that sense. And the fact that we even label kids, the first time I think my consciousness was raised in that regard was when Richard Dawkins showed this beautiful picture from a newspaper, Christmas time, and there's 4 little kids together playing, and one is, you know, a Christian kid, one's a Jewish kid, one's a Hindu kid, one's a Muslim kid. And he say, Jewish kid? And why don't we say, you know, neoliberal kid? When we say, I mean, how you label a 3-year-old, you know, by a very complex idea of Judaism or Islam or Christianity or any of these things, the fact that we even label them is the worst thing we can do to them, because they're not that. As I said, they're born unbelievers. But I think the thing you can do along the lines of, and I have a much older daughter now, and another stepdaughter is now a teenager, so I try to encourage this, is that is just encourage that safe questioning, that any question is okay, first of all, that questioning is a good thing, and that not to trust your answer. Literally, that to be skeptical of what you say. Yeah.
And I don't have kids, but super quick, love your kids, know that you're going to screw it up, and don't panic if things don't go as planned, because I was a believer for many, many years and turned out okay, so things can get fixed. On this side?
I have a short but 2-part question for Lawrence Krauss.
Oh.
If Einstein could see the way people use smartphones today, do you think he would ever regret sharing his research with people? Also, in that same way, do you think there's any scientist that has invented something or discovered something that helped humanity and thought, kind of wish I didn't tell those people, because they're like really ungrateful?
Well, that's a good question. I think Einstein was fascinated by popular culture in his own way, and so he would have played with smartphones, I think. But it comes back to the more general thing. I don't think the scientists ever discover anything for anyone else. They don't discover it for other people or to you know, they discover it because they want to know. And that's that's one of the reasons that's unfortunate, because, you know, the scientists are doing it for themselves. But there's a requirement. I mean, if we're going to create knowledge, we have an obligation at some level to disseminate it. And that's why I spend a fair amount of my time trying to do that. I think it's equally important. But it's also not an excuse for scientists to then step back and say, I'm not interested at all in the social or political ramifications of what I do. I think that's absolving themselves of responsibility, not because they have a special role as scientists, but because I think every citizen has an obligation to utilize, to recognize that they live in a society, and the tools and the things they develop have an impact on that society, and we all have to be political beings. And so scientists need to play a role in the political process, like everyone does, but because science is so successful, that role is particularly important. I mean, I have friends of mine who are there's one PhD physicist in Congress right now, Bill Foster from Illinois, actually, and And if you come from that district, vote for him because he's a good guy. And I'd like more scientists in Congress, but I don't think that's the solution. Science should inform public policy, and an informed public should make decisions about how to use that public policy. So scientists develop things for themselves, but those who say, well, I'm not going to worry about the implications of my research, are just being irresponsible, like anyone else is being irresponsible if they don't care about the implications of what Congress is going to do for the dreamers, say, for example. I mean, it's just irresponsible because we do have a social compact, and the whole point of having an advanced society is that we all have skills that we can use to make it better for everybody. Anyway.
Thank you.
Hi. My name's Andrew Spanner. This question is for Sam. I've struggled with addiction my whole life. In your view on free will, is it just my luck and experiences that determine if I can stay sober, or can someone like myself make a decision to change their life and stay sober because they want it bad enough? Can you expand on free will as it relates to addiction?
Yeah, well, you can definitely decide to do something or not do something and have that decision be the proximate cause of your doing that thing or not doing it. And you can more and more understand all of the variables in your environment and in your relationships that support or undermine that effort. Addiction is an especially charged example, but take something that has no charge. You're just learning to play the piano, right? I mean, if you wake up tomorrow really wanting to learn to play the piano, there's a way to do that. And then there are a million ways to fail to do that, right? So, but there's a very narrow path that you have to stay on in order to come out a competent pianist at the end, right? And it entails practicing the piano and studying with a teacher and being interested in music and all of that. And so it's not, you don't learn the piano by accident, right? And you can't just wait around to see if you learn the piano. You have to actually take all the steps. And so it is with getting free of addiction, right? And so there's all these rational steps you can take, but none of that requires free will. It's still, you still have the mind and the exact brain you have in this moment, right? And if what I'm saying to you now makes sense, it doesn't make sense by virtue of your free will, right? If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't not make sense by virtue of your free will. I mean, it's like everything is just happening in each moment, but part of what's happening are all of these other things that can arise in you that can for good or for ill, so you can more and more witness the downside of addiction and surround yourself with people who support that in you, or you could do the opposite, right? And that will all have a cascade of effects, and those effects again will not be demonstrative of free will, right? It's demonstrative of the causality that helps make a mind and body what it is, and we're all part of this causal fabric of just intersubjective reality. I mean, you're affected by everything. Things you hear, things you read, things you watch on television, conversations you have, glances that people give you, the amount of money you get, the amount of money you lose. I mean, all of it is a cascade of influences, and it all matters. It all is causally summing to something, to this next moment in your life. And the flip side of the no free will argument is that you actually don't know how fully you could change in the next moment. I mean, you're an open system. I mean, you can radically change your life. You can be fundamentally different from who you were yesterday. I mean, the example I gave of being afraid to speak in public, right? At a certain point in my life, I decided, well, I need to speak in public. There's got to be a way to do this. So now I'm going to start doing it. And almost immediately, I was someone who had to regularly put himself in circumstances like this. There's no problem now. I mean, this is a totally anxiety-free thing for me to do. That was not it was not at all obvious that changing myself that fully was possible, but it's clearly possible, right? And that's true on 100 other fronts, and that's part of what, that doesn't entail free will, that just entails causal effects.
I think you can even build on that, especially in the case of addiction, where you feel like you have no control in some sense when you experience addiction to anything. But if you by recognizing in some sense the lack of the existence of free will, you can use that in your favor. You can say, what is going to help me determine my behavior, and how can I influence that? By education, by surrounding myself with the right people. So basically recognizing that your decisions are going to be influenced by a whole bunch of factors, and so and using that and acknowledging that, you can then try to orient yourself so that the factors that impact on you are the factors that are going to drive in the direction that you'd like to go, and so that reinforcement. So I think accepting the fact that we all make decisions because of a host of factors, and we are influenced by our environment, and we are influenced by our peers, and we are influenced by education. Utilize that influence to help direct you to the extent that it can, to try and overcome addiction. Not that it's easy.
That's actually a very important point that I just want to emphasize. I mean, the science on will, it comes to that punchline, which is your will is very unreliable as a way to stay on any path. So you do need to understand the environmental contextual drivers of your behavior. And so I mean, if you want to go on a diet, the first thing to do is to get all of the junk food out of your house, right? Because you have to hedge against your future self who's going to suffer weakness of will. Because weakness of will is coming. So you can't have the drugs or the food or whatever it is available, because your will is going to break down, and the science behind that is very well understood. So you need to approach it as an environmental response.
And if it helps,
and good luck to you too, sir.
Yes. Yeah. And if it helps, the three of us aren't in complete agreement on free will. We discussed a little bit, but we're all in agreement that we're thinking agents with desires, and that there are actions that we can take to bear those out in the way that both of them were talking about that. I think your question betrays something that Sam and I spoke about, that Dan Dennett has a fear of, if there's no free will, people will fall into this idea of fatalism, and that everything that happens to me is either my fault as a failed being, or the cosmos just batting me around like a play toy. And I understand that fear, but I don't share that fear. And I think the fact that there are three individuals up here with slightly different views on free will, all telling you that whether or not you have free will is irrelevant to the fact that you're a thinking agent with desires, and you can cognitively process a plan to meet a goal.
Yeah, let's move off free will.
Yeah.
But good luck, sir.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Vinny. I'm from Chicago.
Hey, that's a surprise.
I have kind of a two-part question. I love all you guys. I follow you regularly. I consider myself a Hitchensian. I find myself more and more stuck on the baggage of language, and it's a common topic. The idea that there's so many people right now that are talking themselves in circles to try to fit a certain narrative. Jordan Peterson does it, where he's so stuck on trying to redefine his idea of truth that he just runs in circles and circles and circles until he wears you out, basically. So could you, Sam, please just give him the intellectual ass-kicking he deserves?
Do it, Sam.
And then the second one is for Professor Krauss. Would you sign my tits?
A year ago, I might have said yes, but the answer is no now.
That question was 14 billion years in the making.
Yeah, that's right.
Stars died so we could get those questions.
Are you wearing gold by any chance?
But
anyway, thank you for your vote of confidence. I will try.
Okay, this is another one for Sam.
Yeah.
How much would you recommend that the average person pursue meditation and spiritual inquiry, if someone has the ability like you to spend a decade of their life pursuing this, is that worthwhile? How much does someone need to work to hit your level of enlightenment, or a level that's worth having?
Well, I think any non-zero amount is already a lot more than most people are tending to do. So 5 minutes a day can actually be a huge change in your life. It's a skill like anything else, and so practicing it regularly is really the only way to acquire it. But it totally depends on your individual circumstance and interest and all the rest. But going from 0 to 5 minutes, 5 minutes done wisely and in a way that is intelligent can be a huge difference. I mean, it's like going from being totally sedentary to working out a little bit every day. And I mean, that's true even with physical exercise. Even 0 to 5 minutes, if it's the right 5 minutes, can be 75% of the health difference in exercise. I mean,
so maybe, yeah, but I would just say that, yeah, but no, I would say, look, different strokes for different folks. If it works for you, great, but maybe 5 minutes exercise is just as good. And so I think it's hard to, it depends on the individual, and I think if you have to try things and see what helps.
What percentage of the population would you not recommend physical exercise to?
I know one. No, but look, it's a matter. Look, no, it's not. But the point is, it's a matter of priority. So you've got a certain amount of time in the day.
Yeah.
And some people spend 3 hours a day on physical exercise. Some people spend 5 minutes, and people have to choose their priorities.
But is there,
and
is there
works,
anyone who you
and
wouldn't?
for some people, 3 hours a day of physical exercise is what makes them, allows them to survive the rest of the day. And for some people, 5 minutes is too much. And so, of course, it's empirically clear that physical exercise is a good thing.
Right.
But you and I would, but I know there are many days when I have other priorities. I like to work out every day if I can, but there are days when I can't. And so, there are other things that you need to do in life. And so you have to, life is a balance. And
there are
so,
usually other things you need to do in life.
Yeah, but I would, but I guess what I'm really worried about, and I don't think you were really saying this, so maybe I hope you weren't, is that I can't tell you what's the best thing for you. You have to try a bunch of things and see what works. And it's good to try a bunch of things, but it's not clear that the same thing will work for everyone, in my opinion, anyway. Anyway.
The analogy to physical exercise is a good one. And if a certain kind of physical exercise doesn't work for you, that can be understood. If you can't do push-ups because you've got an injured shoulder or whatever, there's some workaround. It's not like push-ups don't work, and it's not like push-ups aren't for everybody. They're just not for people who have, for whatever reason, some reason why they can't do push-ups. But there's a principle by which push-ups work for most people that can be invoked even in the case of somebody who's missing an arm or has an injury. And that's true of meditation too, or mindfulness. There's some version of it which, in moderation, and the research, I think, is more and more bearing this out, is basically good for everybody. Now, there are people who suffer various kinds of psychopathology where I certainly wouldn't recommend that they go on intensive retreat. You don't want to go into silence for 10 days and meditate for 14 hours a day if you have some kind of thought disorder, or you're bipolar, and you're
I think you're right that there are things that meditation provides that are good, but you might say to someone, spend a half an hour playing the piano if that's what you. I mean, because for some people it doesn't have to be meditation. It could be you get the same benefits.
But that's just not true. I mean, as witnessed by you. I mean, you don't know what I'm talking about. I mean,
no, you're right.
Yeah. So yeah,
that's exactly what. It's a different version of what I was going to ask, because you said something which what percentage of the population would you not recommend physical exercise to? And I would say the portion of the population that doesn't need it to have a fit and balanced life. There are people who through the course of their daily actions are never going to. The highway workers are not going to need to go to the gym.
They're getting exercise.
Yeah.
Sure. But what I'm saying, when we tie this in, if throughout the course of we'll just use me as an example because I'm perfect. My daily life, I get the same benefits of easing suffering and not dwelling on things and anxiety without actually going through 10 days of not talking, because that would kill me.
Well, but then you would become interested. You should become interested in why it would kill you. I mean, so if you suddenly put yourself in that circumstance and found it intolerable, the mechanism by which you were finding it intolerable could become interesting to you. I mean, it's not objectively intolerable. It's just you hate it, and that is the wellspring from which all of these other forms of restlessness and dissatisfaction are going to ambush you in your life. You know, if you can't be alone with yourself in a room without your smartphone, you have a psychological problem.
I'm good with that.
And it is not an accident that solitary confinement is considered a punishment even inside a maximum security prison. I mean, so you're put in a box with murderers and rapists, and most people still dread being alone in a room more than being out with the murderers and the rapists.
Well, because we're natural. Well, hold on, but yeah, I'm going to keep trying to take.
We're naturally social
I agree
primates.
with
yes.
a lot, but I mean, we are social beings. Humans can't survive alone. We just can't survive.
In the state of nature, that's true. Yeah.
And so to not acknowledge the fact that we need social contact is to not acknowledge what it means to be human. So it's not a bad thing.
I'm not saying we don't need or want social contact. I'm saying if the best way to enjoy social contact is to actually be happy already. Is not to need it in the way that needy people need it. The people who are afraid to be alone, afraid to lose you, afraid to...
well, sometimes actually the best time
complicates relationships.
Yeah, well, I'm going to keep disagreeing because it's fun. But but sometimes the best social contact that I can have is when I feel miserable, and then I'm with someone, let's say my wife, who makes me feel better. That's great.
That's a great.
So I don't have to be happy
relationship.
to have a wonderful social contact. My experience can take me out of depression.
Yeah, but there's the other side of that experience, which is you're miserable, and now you're making everyone around you miserable.
Well, that's true. I do that as a rule.
I mean,
so
if my wife were here, she would tell the frequency with which I complain about petty stuff to her is not a feature, it's a bug, right? And
you do that?
Oh, sure.
I never figured you did that.
But I would do a lot more of it if I didn't meditate.
Yeah,
you know?
But I would argue that you're not making them miserable because they're responsible for whether or not they become
Let's get some more questions.
Yeah. Anyway, over here.
Yeah. Hi, my name's Ryan, and this question's for either one of you. So I want to preface it with saying that I love your book, The Moral Landscape, Sam, but I have a question in regards to, so you talk about in your book, obviously, that science can influence and tell us about objective truths about reality, but you often appeal to low-hanging fruit where you talk about, if you cut off someone's head, that's objectively, wrong. But when we start talking about more nuanced things like healthcare policy or economics, do you think science can still influence or tell us about objective truths in those fields? And if so, could you give an example?
Yeah, well, so just to tell you why I would go after the low-hanging fruit for part of the argument is that I'm making an argument that there are right and wrong answers whether or not we can find them. I mean, that is the nature of scientific truth. That is the nature of realism in any area, whether it's scientific realism or moral realism. It is a claim that reality is a certain way, whether anyone in this room knows it or not, right? And it's possible for all of us to be wrong. It's possible for just one person to be right. It's possible for that person to die, and now everyone left is still wrong, right? So it's possible not to know what you're missing in every area where there is a reality that's bigger than you are, and that's also true of the moral domain as defined by the possibilities of experience in this universe. This universe admits of an extreme range of possible experience, and we've all been buffeted around the continuum of just pointless misery to sublime, rapturous pleasure. And we want a lot more of this, and we want less of this, and both personally and collectively. And and again, you could be more or less informed about the dynamics of that movement, right? So you don't know that, substance abuse is as bad as it is for you, say, or you don't know that this relationship is, undermining your happiness. And but there's a right answer there, whether you know it or not. You don't know how much happier you would have been had you married that other person, or so. There are many of these questions that we will never find out. We'll never get the data. You'll never get, exactly what is the weight of every person in this room combined. If we could put you all on a balance, we could actually give a pretty good estimate, right? We know how many people are in here, almost. We know the average weight of a human being. We could get within, I'm sure, 5% of the exact number. But there is an exact number, right? Well, to whatever measurement error and to whatever decimal place you arbitrarily care about. But we're never going to find it. So this is a difference between answers in practice and answers in principle. In principle, there's an answer to that question. In practice, we'll never get the data. And so many of the more complicated questions of what healthcare policy would maximize the well-being of everyone living under it, that's something that, to a first approximation, we will want economists and other smart people in the relevant areas to eventually figure out. But whether we'll ever be sure we have the right answer, we'll never be totally sure what better answer we could have found, or what in some alternate universe the counterfactual answer paid better results. So we're still living with impressive uncertainty, and yet it's clear we can navigate in this space, and it's clear there are answers to be discovered that will surprise us, and that's my claim with respect to morality. It's a navigation problem.
Yeah, it's one area where I think Sam and I are in extremely close agreement. But to take it even further, you won't get to that answer by revelation.
Right.
The only way to get to that answer, and you might not know what the right answer is, but the only ways to get there are using rationality and empirical evidence, and those are the only ways to even get close. So any other way just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Landon Klipp. I'm a student at the University of Illinois. My question is for Sam. In your book, Waking Up, you talk extensively about your travels to India. You spent a significant amount of time amongst various gurus. My question is, what possessed your brain to upend your life to do that sort of thing? And also, would you recommend that experience to the regular person, or is it enough to experience it vicariously?
Well, so as I said in Waking Up, and I think in the first chapter, the first page, what possessed my brain, literally possessed my brain. It was a drug experience that I had on MDMA when I was 18, I think, and the net result of that was I could no longer overlook that it was possible to be much different than I was tending to be, right? So I took not everyone has this experience and not everyone draws the same message from it, but the message that is to be drawn from it is that it's possible to have a very different experience than you're tending to have. Neurologically, this is a neurological fact, and the drug isn't doing anything to your brain that your brain can't do, right? It's just pulling the levers and turning the knobs that are already in there, so it's possible to come away from that experience thinking, well, MDMA is very interesting, but unhealthy to take again and again. So, there goes that project. Or you could realize that there are other ways to overcome all of the limitations in yourself that you were noticing overcome in that experience. And that's the message I drew at that point. So I became very interested in just what other methodologies were out there and what other philosophies and conversations were out there. And again, so as you move into that esoteric Eastern side of the bookstore, there's just a tsunami of woo and craziness that you get hit with that you have to use your critical scientific faculties to differentiate. But there's a central strand of empiricism and methodology and just just learning to pay attention to experience. And it's not, and this is why mindfulness is everywhere now, and chanting to Krishna isn't, right? Because mindfulness really is just, it's just paying attention to experience. There's nothing you have to believe. You don't have to be a Buddhist. You don't have to care about Buddhism. It is as culture-free an act of attention as anything could ever be, right? It's literally just attention. It's just directed attention to whatever. It's just noticing what you notice in each moment. So if you're hearing and you're sensing your body in space and you're seeing changes in light and you're noticing thoughts arise and you're noticing moods arise, if all that stuff is happening anyway. Mindfulness is just the faculty of mind that notices in real time what you're noticing, right? So the only difference between that and what most of us are tending to do is you're no longer lost in thought in that moment. You're not having a conversation that you're not noticing. If thoughts arising, you're noticing the next thought arise. So there's zero culture, there's zero belief, there's zero iconography. It's just pure attention to experience. And it's I certainly recommend that. There's no need to go to India and meet anybody to do that. At a certain point in my life, I felt it was incredibly useful to go into a crucible of a retreat, a silent retreat, to do nothing but that for a period of time. Because it is just the first thing you discover when you actually make a serious attempt to do this is that it's incredibly hard to do. I mean, you cannot pay attention to anything for more than 5 seconds. And that should be interesting to you, because that's a very strange feature of our minds, and there's no way that's optimal, right? It's like the idea that default setting is somehow this perfect, fine tuning of the human psychology to its optimum. That's just patently insane. And then once you notice that most of the thoughts that are intruding in your experience are unhappy ones, right? You're trying to listen to what I'm saying, but you just got distracted, and the thing you got distracted by is annoying, right? Well, how good is it to have a mind like that, right? Or you're trying to read a page of text and you've read the same paragraph 3 times in a row because you just keep worrying about what you have to do tomorrow, right? How good is that, right? That's a lack of, that's what it's like to have an untrained mind. It's like being, someone who's never worked out, but you're put into some Olympic event, and just set to fail. Like, here's a pole vault, just run at that, point it over there and run. Let's see what happens. Right? That's how most of us are living our lives, and so I highly, as you can tell, I'm kind of evangelizing for this training, but there's nothing esoteric or weird you need to do to actually do it.
So what you're saying is I don't have to go find the blue flower that glows on the side of the hill and carry it up to your mansion in the mountain.
No, although it wouldn't hurt.
Sensei thing. If you could just say, I'm Batman, that would really...
That was a good answer. I agree. I like that answer.
Cool.
So everybody's going to hate me.
No, let him go another few minutes.
One more question, because they've already flagged me to wrap this up so that we can say goodnight and get to the book signing.
We have a book signing afterwards.
There's a book signing afterwards, and so you get the honor of the last question. Thank you for waiting, and our apologies to everybody else who was waiting.
Hi, my name is Shauna. I work as a clinical psychologist. I generally have no idea what Jordan Peterson is talking about. Just get that out there. My question is for all 3 of you. I am curious what book or what books are currently on your nightstand.
Oh, wow. I literally, this is what the Kindle has done to culture. I have, there's 100 answers to that question. Yeah. It's made me a very fickle reader, but I have, because of my podcast, I'm reading so many books for that I can just kind of go through with my upcoming guests. So I just had Neil Ferguson, his book, The Square and the Tower. It's very interesting. Robin Hanson, The Economist, I'm doing an event with soon. He's got a book, The Elephant in the Brain, that is also very interesting. There's a lot of, just a stack of books that are you can just look at who I'm doing live events with in the next month and you know what books I'm reading.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Except for his book. I didn't read his book. I read your other book.
We did a podcast, though, but yeah, it's true you didn't read the book.
I read the book for that podcast.
Yeah. We've done 2 podcasts. But, so you read 2 of my books.
Have we done 2?
But, okay, so let's see. There's a few. I have a Kindle, so I'll use, but I actually like to read. So one of the hard copy books is Robert Sapolsky's book that I've been reading, which is interesting. And also Ed Yong's book, I Am Multitudes, which is how microbes affect your body in great ways. But there's also 2 books on the origin of religion that I've been reading. One by Stephen Greenblatt, The Origin of Adam and Eve, and another one by what's his name? Who's going to be at my Origins event? Who I love his book. He's coming out with a new one. He's a theologian who used to be in North Carolina. He used to be a strong believer, but he's
Bart Ehrman?
What? Bart Ehrman. Yeah, that's right. Bart Ehrman. I'm reading one of his books. He's got a new one coming out the next week, which is good, and he'll be at our Origins event in April. But the book on my nightstand is Harry Potter, because I was culturally deprived. I never read it, and my wife used to read it to her daughter when she was young. So now I'm reading it aloud to my wife every night before I go to sleep.
Nice.
That's
this will be disappointing. But the book that's actually on my nightstand right now is by Ian Rowland, and it's The Full Facts on Cold Reading. Ian Rowland is a mentalist in the UK who's a friend of mine, and he just gave me the book, and I'm reading it. So.
And yeah.
And the Bible. Because I never stopped studying.
You might be wrong.
There is a Bible in there, and it's a lot of it's prep work, but some of it's, masochistic fun.
Hey, you know where my Bible is? I do this. It's really freeing. We're staying at a hotel here, and now every time I go into a hotel, I take the Bible out of the nightstand and I throw it in the garbage can.
No.
And it's so much fun. And I usually wrap it up so they don't notice it. So there's one less Bible in hotels.
Wow. And we wonder why atheists get a bad name.
At least I don't steal it.
On that note, thank you guys so much, Chicago.
Thank you all for coming.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.